Hello, and thank you for joining me in my study today. In these videos, we spend time together thinking theologically and liturgically about what it means to be Christian in the 21st century. This video will be the last of the weekly publications of this series as we take a bit of a break for the summer months. I just wanted to say thank you for those of you who have been coming along with us for 24 episodes now. It's been a real pleasure to engage with you in this way each week, and I've really appreciated the conversations and emails that have come about as a result of these. But more importantly, the conversations and care groups and studies that are happening in different places with these videos. It's been a real encouragement to see that kind of thing happen. You will probably get one or two videos from me throughout the summer, but they will come randomly as I am moved by the Spirit or by something that I've read or am interacting with or just want to offer a perspective on during that time. And then sometime in September, we will return to our regularly scheduled programming with Season 2 of From the Pastor's Study. All that being said, I wanted to take some time in this video and share with you my hoped for reading list for the summer months and maybe invite you to join with me in reading some of these same books or reading other books and having a good conversation around those things that we're studying and learning about together. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you my reading list and the books that I hope to get through this summer, and encourage you to think about a reading list for yourselves. Now, I'll give them in no particular order because I'm just going to grab them off of my shelf here and share that with you. But the first book that I'm going to be picking up and reading for this summer is Reimagining Apologetics by Justin Bailey. Justin Bailey is a new professor at Dordt University in Iowa. He just finished his PhD through Fuller Theological Seminary in California. And this book is sort of the popular and published version of his dissertation thesis, which was all about the use of beauty and aesthetics as a modern or new apologetic in this 21st century world. And so I think the subtitle of this book is telling. It's The Beauty of Faith in a Secular Age. Now, in the books that I'm going to present here and that I hope to read this summer, you'll notice a theme there around that secular age, and that relates back and out of the work of Charles Taylor, who's a Canadian Catholic social philosopher. Here published a massive tome called The Secular Age, wherein he traces the history of Christian thought from the New Testament to the modern era, contemporary era, and sort of outlines how we got to the present philosophical and cultural worldview that we find ourselves in. And a lot of theologians and philosophers alike have been taking that work and then beginning to apply it in different ways and in different directions. And if you've been around these pastor study videos for a little while, you'll have heard some similar themes. Beauty and aesthetics as a modern apologetic is something really close to my heart, as an area of interest and study for me, and an opportunity, I think, to dig into some new and renewed, really, ways of articulating and sharing the Christian faith in the world today. And so I'm excited to read this one. I'm also going to conclude reading, because I have started it. I'm a little ways through Tom Holland's book, Dominion. This book is published by Tom Holland and was published in 2019. And it traces the history of modern thought coming from the Christian era. The UK version, which is the one that I'm reading here, is subtitled The Making of the Western Mind. And in this book, Tom Holland argues that to live in a Western society is to live in a society still utterly saturated by Christian concepts and Christian assumptions, even if the religion itself is no longer practiced. And that's a really interesting way of framing the history of the Western world. Now, my undergraduate degree is in history, and I focused in really on intellectual history, and I minored in philosophy, and so this sort of historical survey is right up my alley. And I must say, I'm about 150 pages in right now. I really appreciate the way Tom writes and the language that he writes in. Tom is a fiction writer who has also written some nonfiction work, and he has done some publications on BBC television and BBC radio as well. And so very winsomely and with really good storytelling shares the development of the Western mind and keying in on particular crucible moments in our shared history together. And so I'm excited to continue and to finish this book this summer. As well, I'm going to read Andrew Root's book, The Pastor in a Secular Age. Now here you get the connection from this book and Justin Bailey's book to the work of Charles Taylor again. Now Andrew Root has a PhD from Princeton, and he's currently a professor at Lutheran Seminary in Minnesota. And the tag on this book is Ministering to People Who No Longer Need God. And it really asks the question, now that we live in this secular age, and secular defined in the same way that Taylor defines it there as secular 3, now that we live in this secular age, what does it look like to minister and to be a pastor in this current moment together? This book was also published in 2019, and so I imagine it will be pretty prescient to the kinds of things that we do and are wrestling with in ministry and life as Christians today. Also, I'm going to read this book by Carl Trueman. This book by Carl Trueman was published in 2020, I believe, and is called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self. And in this book, Carl Trueman assesses the shift in priority that our understanding of identity and personal identity has emerged to the fore, using the language of Taylor again, this idea of expressive individualism and what that has changed for the understanding of self in the modern world. The tag on this book is Cultural Amnesia, Expressive Individualism, and the Road to the Sexual Revolution. I'm interested to hear what Trueman writes in this book. Trueman is a PhD from the University of Aberdeen, and he's the professor of biblical and religious studies at Grove City College, a small independent college in Pennsylvania. I first came across Trueman actually in a podcast. He is one of the co-hosts of the podcast Mortification of Spin, which is put out by the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals, one that I listen to pretty regularly. And so when this book came out, when I saw this come up, I thought I would grab it, and it would be, at the very least, an interesting read and an interesting assessment in line with this broader understanding of how to live and do life and how we got where we got, both ideologically, culturally, and with our worldview together. And then also, I plan to read in the vein of C.S. Lewis, who says for every good or new book you read, you should read an old one, where he talks about the importance of reading old books as a way to provide a different perspective on the issues and struggles of life. And so I'm going to read and reread in some cases this book. This is an anthology of sermons by J. Gresham Machen. Now, J. Gresham Machen was in the 19th and into the early 20th century. He was connected to Princeton Seminary and all of the struggles at that time with Protestant liberalism and the movement into the main line as far as like theology goes that took place in that time, as redaction critical studies and historical critical studies really came to the fore of the academic study of Scripture. And Machen and others ended up founding Westminster Seminary in Philadelphia, and stood in many ways as a pillar for traditional Christian theology and understanding. And so I'm going to read these sermons, or as many as I can get through as well this summer, in an effort to keep my approach to reading balanced. And similarly, I would encourage you to do the same. Find an old book or an old author that's unrelated to our time and place, and read that. If you need some suggestions, you can put a question in the comments below, and I'm happy to make some recommendations. In addition to all those, I really do believe that it's also important to read fiction works. And so I hope to pick up the fourth book in the Brandon Sanderson science fiction series, fantasy series, the Stormlight Archive. And so the fourth book is called The Rhythm of War. Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite fantasy authors. And the Stormlight Archive series is no small feat. Each book is about 1,000+ pages, and so I hope to get book 4 and read through that. Particularly, I have 2 weeks of vacation. One of those weeks I'll be spending with my family in Ontario at a cottage where there's a beach and the like. So hopefully I'll be able to get through that one during those days. What about you? What are you hoping to read this summer? What maybe can you commit to if you're in a care group or a study group? What can you read together and share in discussion of? Share your learning with each other and here in the comments to this video, and maybe we can put together a bit of an anthology of good books to read. Again, I want to thank you for joining me this week and in all the weeks previous. It really indeed has been a blessing, and I will see you again in September as we start here with season 2. God bless and have a great summer.